have you ever found yourself, stuck in that cycle? You set a goal, maybe a health goal, you give it everything, sheer willpower. You might even see some results for a bit. But then, poof, it just slips away. And you're left thinking, okay, what is wrong with me? Well, if that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place today. We're doing a deep dive into a really insightful way of looking at weight transformation. It seriously challenges the usual thinking. And yeah, we'll talk about tools like semaglutide, the medication getting a lot of attention for weight management. But this deep dive goes way beyond just the medicine. It's really about, a profound human journey. Self-discovery, transformation, all of it. So for this, we're drawing on some fascinating material. We're looking at the philosophy of Dan Hollis, especially his semaglutide manifesto, which is quite something. And also a really raw personal piece called Entry #2, The Morning Her Reflection Didn't Recognize Her. Plus a very thought-provoking reflection he wrote on failing gracefully.
Right. And our mission today for you listening is really to unpack why Dan's approach feels so different. We want to focus on those emotional shifts, the psychological ones, even the metabolic changes that happen in real transformation. And crucially, what does it actually mean to start right? We'll get into some surprising facts, maybe some aha moments about what happens after you see those first changes. And really importantly, how to handle those next stages, the ones people often, forget about.
Okay, let's jump right in with that big reframe. A lot of people see semaglutide as, I don't know, a magic bullet, a quick fix. But Dan Hollis pushes back hard on that. He states very clearly this is not a drug journey, it's a human one. Why does he draw that line so firmly?
Yeah, that distinction is absolutely core to his whole philosophy. He acknowledges semaglutide as a powerful tool. Absolutely. It's a GLP-1 receptor agonist, which in simpler terms means it helps sort of recalibrate your brain signals about hunger and fullness. So you feel less intense cravings, you feel full faster, stay full longer. That metabolic shift itself can feel incredibly freeing. But as he points out, it can also be kind of terrifying because it messes with really deep-seated patterns, right? And maybe even your emotional relationship with food. So it's not just a pill, it's a catalyst. It forces you to do deeper personal work and need support that goes way beyond just the prescription.
And that personal work, we usually think willpower, don't we? Just grit your teeth and push through. We've all tried it. But Hollis basically says, look, if you're here, you've already tried willpower, probably more times than you can count. He argues it was never the real problem anyway. That feels huge.
Yeah. It is huge. Because he argues that just relying on willpower pits you against your own biology, against powerful emotions, against these habit loops that are so ingrained. It's not about being weak or undisciplined. That's not it at all. He says the real solution involves insight, getting structure, and using tools that actually work with your biology, not just trying to force a change against the current, which often, just doesn't stick without that deeper understanding.
So if willpower isn't the main hurdle, what is? And how do we even start this human journey he talks about? He offers this foundational idea. There is no shame here, only process. That feels like a breath of fresh air compared to how we usually beat ourselves up.
Oh, completely. That reframe is critical because it actually allows for progress.
Yeah.
It means you're not fundamentally flawed or lazy or lacking discipline. You've been working against biological systems you probably weren't taught about. And let's be honest, maybe against a culture that kind of profits from the confusion around weight and health. So the goal becomes resetting things, resetting your body's metabolic expectations, yes, but also resetting how you see yourself in this process, understanding the why without all the self-blame.
And he builds on that, saying it's a conversation, not a prescription. That really highlights the relationship aspect, doesn't it? Your relationship with food, with your body, even with whoever is guiding you. He talks about providing a map, a guide, and a community.
Exactly. It pulls us away from just a transactional view of health. Like get drug, follow rules, done. It's about building this whole supportive ecosystem around yourself, recognizing it's a complex ongoing dialogue with your own body, your own mind. And that's just way more sustainable because it sees the whole picture of who we are. And often that picture includes things we don't usually connect directly to weight.
Right, because Dan Hollis really pushes us to accept this idea. Our weight is often emotional weight, just as much as physical weight. It's a connection we might overlook, but he says it's fundamental.
It's fundamental because people don't just eat because they're physically hungry, do they? I mean, we eat when we're anxious or lonely, bored, maybe overstimulated, maybe feeling unsupported. Semaglutide can definitely help with the physical hunger signals. But if you don't address those underlying emotional reasons for eating, Well, the risk of falling back into old patterns is super high, so his system tries to help with that emotional recalibration. So food isn't your main coping tool anymore. It's a much more holistic way of thinking about nourishing yourself beyond just what's on the plate.
So it's not just about counting calories, it's about the emotional why behind the eating. Which, yeah, sometimes that pint of ice cream after a rough day isn't about hunger, is it? It's like a quick, sugary coping mechanism. How does his system help untangle that? And speaking of the physical side, here's something that really made me pause. It feels counterintuitive. Hollis says fast weight loss without metabolic pacing is a trap. We tend to celebrate seeing the scale drop quickly, right? But he's saying that can actually backfire. Why?
Yeah, it does feel counterintuitive, but there's solid science here. Rapid weight loss can basically scream famine to your body. It triggers survival modes. And we see this in research all the time. When you lose weight too fast, your body often fights back. For one, your metabolism can slow down significantly. Your body tries to conserve energy by burning fewer calories, and maybe even more critically, you often lose muscle mass along with fat. Muscle is like your metabolic furnace. Losing it makes long-term weight maintenance much harder. Studies also show that really aggressive diets lead to quicker weight regain later on. So Hollis's idea of pacing is all about preventing that. It's about timing your nutrition, building habits, managing progress in a way that lets your body adapt sustainably. It protects your long-term metabolic health rather than just chasing a number. It's playing the long game, not just winning a short sprint.
Okay, this next point feels really important, maybe even a bit unsettling for some. Hollis says the real work begins after the medication. Now, if semaglutide isn't necessarily forever for everyone, what happens when someone stops? Are those old habits and triggers just waiting to jump back in?
They absolutely can be, and that's exactly his point. The danger is that semaglutide can feel like the fix, instead of a tool in a bigger process. So if you haven't actively built other habits, ways to manage stress, process emotions, make conscious food choices that go beyond the medication's effect, well, when the medication stops, the brain often just snaps back to those old familiar pathways. It's like it's asking for that old rhythm. Appetite comes back, emotional triggers fire up again, and without a solid plan B, it can feel overwhelming. You really have to prep for the after right from the start.
Which brings us perfectly to Adrienne's story. It's such a vivid example of this hidden challenge. She's 53, and she had what Hollis calls a toothpaste moment. Just a normal morning, brushing her teeth, looks in the mirror, and she just doesn't recognize the woman staring back. Intellectually, she knew it was her, but she said, I don't feel like I belong to her.
Yeah.
It wasn't celebratory for her. It felt like she was disappearing.
And this is where Hollis introduces that powerful term, identity lag. It's such a profound insight. He says, your body can change faster than your story. And when that happens, the soul gets confused.
Oh.
We think the hard part is losing the weight, right? But often, the real crisis hits after the physical transformations. The hunger cues change, the old eating rituals vanish, the sort of armor the weight provided drops away, and you're left feeling like a stranger to yourself.
Yeah, and Adrienne wasn't actually mourning the lost pounds. She was mourning the version of herself who carried them. The woman who knew how to handle things, who knew which sweaters covered the most and which apologies sounded casual. She was good at being that person, and now she felt like a mind without a map in a body that didn't feel like hers.
Which just shows the depth of the work needed, right? And Hollis, crucially, didn't just give her platitudes. He listened. He understood that, as he put it, the weight loss is just the clearing. The becoming takes longer.
Yeah.
It's this active process of reconnecting, of building a new narrative for this new self.
So they started working on language, not pounds. They started rewriting the names of things. Shame wasn't shame anymore. It became memory. Control wasn't control. It became curiosity. Discipline shifted to alignment. That's a huge internal rewiring.
It's massive. And it asks a really important question about how we even define progress, doesn't it? It's about giving yourself permission, really. Permission to not quite know who you are yet in this new body, this new state. Permission to feel awkward in that messy middle ground. And permission to build a new story without feeling like you have to totally erase the old one. Adrienne's journey, just learning to stand at the mirror a bit longer, not flinch away, that signals a much deeper shift than any number on a scale. It's about finding that internal coherence again.
Okay, let's talk about setbacks, because let's face it, they happen in pretty much any big change process, right? We've all felt that awful wave of guilt, shame, thinking, ugh, I'm weak, I'm undisciplined, I'm broken.
Yes, and Hollis offers such a game-changing reframe here. He says, failure isn't the end, it's a message, a moment of feedback. And he adds, sometimes it's the most honest conversation you'll ever have with yourself.
Hmm.
He reframes it completely, not as a story about your character, but as a data point, just information.
So a relapse isn't like you've betrayed all your progress. It's more like the brain asking for the old familiar rhythm. That puts it in such a different light. More compassionate, more understandable, less like a moral failure.
Exactly. And it ties right back to his point that most people aren't failing semaglutide. They're failing to prepare for what comes after it.
Mhm.
Often a setback is just a signal. Maybe the support system needs shoring up. Maybe the strategies need adjusting. It's not usually a sign that the person is inherently flawed or weak. It's about tweaking the process, not blaming the person. It's about asking, okay, what can I learn from this?
And he says these setbacks are sacred if you're willing to look at them with curiosity instead of judgment. Wow. That's a powerful invitation to treat ourselves differently, isn't it? With a bit more grace.
It really is. That's grace in action, according to him. It means when you stumble, instead of piling on the blame, you reach for a better tool, maybe a different strategy. He challenges us, and you listening, to ask, what story am I telling myself about this failure? And is that story actually helping me become who I want to be?
Mm.
It flips the script, turning what feels like a defeat into a genuine opportunity for deeper insight and growth, moving you closer, not further away.
Wow. This has been such an illuminating deep dive, really understanding weight transformation as this deeply human journey. We've unpacked how willpower maybe isn't the villain we thought it was, how crucial emotional recalibration and that metabolic pacing are for changes that actually last, and exploring that whole concept of identity lag after the physical changes. It's a huge piece often missed. Plus, reframing failure as feedback, not the end of the road.
Absolutely. This perspective really offers a different kind of map, doesn't it? For anyone on a path of significant personal change. It's a reminder that, you're not alone in the struggle. And you're definitely not broken. You're just in a process. And that process needs understanding, it needs support, and it probably needs a whole new definition of what success even means, seeing the whole person, not just the pounds.
So, maybe a final thought for you to consider. If you've ever looked in the mirror and felt like you were looking at a stranger, or if you felt that sting of shame after a setback, perhaps the real journey isn't just about losing something. Maybe it's more about gaining a new, more aligned, more compassionate relationship with yourself. How might embracing ideas like identity lag and failing gracefully actually redefine your own path forward? Something to think about as you navigate your own unique journey of becoming.